Alright, so today's activity, we're going to need a fine point permanent marker, a pencil, an eraser, a small binder clip, and a stack of 15 or 16 note cards. Now when we begin drawing, we can begin drawing with our pencil and then later go over things with our permanent marker, whichever makes you feel comfortable. So I'm going to be using my pencil here to number my cards 1 through 15 or 16, however many you have. It's important for us to go ahead and number the cards. So card number 1 is going to be our last card, and then card number 15 or 16, however many you decide to have, is going to be our first card. Now I do recommend in advance planning out how you want everything to look. You can do like an outline and decide what you want each card to do, like which number, so you can say 1 through 5 is going to be like this, or 10 through 12 is going to look like this. But if you'd like to go ahead and plan it out in advance, then that'd be a good idea as well. But I'm going to finish numbering my cards and then I'm going to get ready to start drawing. Here you can see I've already labeled all of my index cards 1 through 15 at the top corner, and that's to let me know which card I want to be the end and which card I want to be in the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and start with drawing my first picture. So my picture is going to be a little stick figure, and if you guys didn't know, we're going to be doing a fairy. And I made a little generic stick figure fairy, and first I did it in pencil, but then I decided to go over it in permanent marker so that way I could see it if I placed another note card on top of it. So here you see me placing the second card on top of the first one. I can barely see the outline of the fairy, but that's why I went over it in permanent marker instead of continuing with pencil. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the same outline, and I did something generic such as like grass as a landscape, but that's what I'm doing here, and that's what you want to do for your second card. And you want to see if you can move the fairy like a little bit further on the grass to make it look like the fairy is actually walking, because when we do the flip book, then we want to look like the fairy is in motion. So now that we've got our first and second card done, we can tell that the fairy has moved a little bit further on the second card, but for the third card, we want it to look like it's moving further than the second card. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to draw the grass, and it's fine if the grass doesn't look exactly the same on every card. The fairy looks like it's in motion, so of course it's going to look like it's going over grass, which doesn't look the same everywhere you go. And you want to go ahead and take the third card and you want to place it on top of the second one that you drew, but you want to place it not centered, you want to place it off-centered, so when we go ahead and look for the outline, it's not going to be right on top. So that way the fairy looks like it's moving and it's not in the same spot. As you can see here, I've continued on the process of drawing the grass and then drawing the fairy, but in different locations on each card. So I try to move the cards a little further so the fairy can look like she's moving. So here I've got the fairy drawn towards the end of my most recent index card before I prepare to have the fairy take flight. So this is going to be one of the last few cards before I start angling her to make her look like she's flying in the air. But I'm going to go ahead and continue to start each card with the grass before I actually draw the fairy. So here I've got the fairy a little higher off of the grass, and this is me drawing this drawing before I start on the last 9 note cards where I prepare her to take flight. And so each time I draw her over these next few cards, I'm going to have her come up a little higher before I start angling her and have her essentially going towards the corner, the top corner of the index card. So here I'm taking a moment to review the cards that I previously drew so I can prepare myself to draw the fairy taking flight. So now you can see I'm kind of drawing her at an angle, so I'm going to go ahead and turn my cards to make the same angle. And I'm going to go ahead and draw her taking flight as if she's flying out of the corner of the card. Each card after this, I'm going to continue to draw my fairy just a little further and closer towards the edge of the card, and it's going to look like her entire body is starting to disappear at the top corner of the card. And so this makes it appear as if she's flying off the corner. So for the last few index cards, for the exact last one that I'm going to draw my fairy, what I'm going to do is just draw her legs to make it look like she's completely going off of the page. And then for the final card, which is card number 1 that I previously wrote on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a castle, and then I'm going to draw a tree, and then I'm going to draw the fairy on top of the castle. And I want to make it look like the fairy essentially lands on the top of the castle and that's her destination. Now if you want to draw something a little different, you can. If you want to look online for drawings of fairies and have something to base it off of, I basically just used a stick figure fairy because I thought it was the most easiest to do. But if you want to take more time and do more detail, then you can add more note cards. For this tutorial, I used approximately 15 or 16 note cards, but I did number them so I can keep track of where I want them located. So here I am going through all of my note cards, adding some little details, some line marks to make it look like the fairy is actually flying. And then I'm going to review some of the note cards to see if I notice any errors, add additional subtle details. Now here I noticed that I needed to add an additional card because the fairy went straight up and then sideways. So I wanted to have a card that included to show her transitioning from straight to sideways. So here I am trying to figure out the best way to draw a transition image where it looks like the fairy is slightly turning sideways. And this is going to help it look more realistic whenever we actually complete the flip book and add everything together. Now it's fine if you make a little bit of a mistake. You can always go back and add additional cards. So I started out with 15 cards and I ended up with a total of 16. So here I'm just adding additional details to the first card because I initially started drawing with the pencil, and so I decided to go over with the permanent marker. But you can go ahead and decide if you want to start out with the pencil and then finish it off by going over each card with the permanent marker in case you make mistakes. And then I'm also reviewing everything, but that's pretty much it, just checking for any additional subtle details. Then what you'll do is you'll stack the cards all together, one being the last one and 15 being the top one. You'll secure it with the binder clip and you're done!